We live in a digital world, and what we do online can make all the difference in a job search. Recruiters regularly use search engines and social platforms both to find candidates and review applicant backgrounds. If you want a digital profile that impresses hiring managers, we have a free MaxList course that can help. How to wow and woo employers online. Go to maxlist.org/wow. In 3 lessons, we show you how to make the most of social media and other tools when you look for work. You'll learn what matters most to employers who look you up online, how to create and manage social accounts that attract hiring managers, and the difference your social platforms can make in growing and serving your professional network. To enroll in this free course, visit maxlist.org/wow. Again, that's maxlist.org/wow. This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of MaxList. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. You know the difference that connections can make when you apply for a job. But what do you do when you have no contacts inside an organization? Kathleen Davis is here to talk about how to get your foot in the door when you don't know anyone. She's the deputy editor at fastcompany.com, where she writes about careers, hiring, and other workplace topics. Kathleen also hosts the New Way We Work podcast, and she joins us from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Well, let's jump right into it, Kathleen. What do you mean exactly when you talk about getting your foot in the door?
So what I mean is, and I'm sure that a lot of job seekers have had this experience, I certainly did when I was looking for a job, if you don't know anybody, especially if you're trying to break into a new industry. My industry is media. It's incredibly competitive. A lot of it you'll find is who you know. You know, there's that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And if you went to a certain school and you have an alumni network, if you have interned at a company, you kind of already have those connections. But if you don't have those connections, and you can feel like you're sending your resume out into a void. And how do you get somebody to actually notice you?
So tell us more about why building those connections are so important, and what stops job seekers from doing that, from making those connections.
I think, what stops people is you don't know who to reach out to, how to reach out to them. And, kind of the importance of it is, of course, any open position has hundreds, if not thousands of people applying. And a lot of people, don't apply very smartly. They're just send their resume out to whatever job. You're certainly not going to stand out. You're just kind of hoping that, and of course, you don't even know if a human's reviewing your resume or if it's, going through an applicant tracking system and nobody actually looks at it. So the importance of having that connection, knowing that a human will actually look at your resume, that you'll kind of rise above those other 100 candidates, is really important. I think a lot of people make the mistake of addressing, either writing a generic cover letter, first of all, which I think is a big no-no, but addressing it to whom it may concern. It does not take a lot of work to figure out who that whom is. Looking, if you're applying for a marketing position, who is likely going to be the head of marketing, who the hiring manager, is it the HR person, is it a hiring manager? Doing that little bit of work to figure out who it is. I think people kind of maybe just stop with, well, they said send it through this portal and I'll send it through this portal, and kind of don't take that other step to think of like, well, who is the actual person I should make that connection with?
Well, talk more about how you find the people that you are going to connect with, and what difference can using LinkedIn make when you're trying to do that?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is a great tool. Other social media platforms, could be useful as well. LinkedIn is really the go-to one. If you're looking, when you look at a job opening, finding the right person in the right department and seeing what they post about, seeing how frequently they post, sending an email to that person, reaching out to that person, but not with a let me pick your brain, or can I go out to coffee, or can I, not going to them with an ask. But I think it's really important too, if there was a job posting and it said, send your application through this portal, follow the rules, send your application through that portal, but then to take the extra step to find who that hiring manager is. And as I said, it doesn't take a lot of work. I think it's a research skill that a lot of people can do, even if they haven't done it before. Find who that person is and then make that connection. I saw this job posting. I was really excited about it. I applied through the portal as required, but I just wanted to raise my profile with you and mention my enthusiasm towards this job to you.
Say more about that message that you send out to the person. You're expressing enthusiasm. Is that the extent of the communication, or do you have a specific ask?
So I think some of this, some of these connections can happen in advance of a job posting. So if there is a company that you're really interested in or an industry you're trying to break into, it might make sense to start to see who those folks are before a job is even posted. Try to make a connection with them, see what they're posting about, post, industry specific related, content, share ideas on their posting, just kind of like building up a genuine, actual connection that I am a thoughtful person who is thinking about these things. And so when you then, hopefully there is, when down the line there is a job posting and you reach out to them and say, I just want to express my enthusiasm in it, they kind of, you're not a stranger. They'll know where who you are. If you do want to do that kind of informational setup in advance, like I said, I think it's good to not say, "Hey, can I pick your brain? Can I meet you for coffee?" Making a big ask of their time. I think maybe giving a couple different options. I would love to talk more about this sort of opportunity, these sorts of things. 15-minute phone call, or could you do an email, or kind of giving busy people options and being very specific about what you're asking for. The pick your brain, the let me know more sort of thing, that really puts the onus on that person to what do you want from me? What are you asking me for?
Why does being specific and saying I want to have this amount of time to talk about this topic, why is that better, Kathleen, than asking someone to coffee or asking to pick their brain?
Because you're giving them you're setting expectations on exactly what you're asking of them. Something very vague on, can we go out for coffee sometimes? It's like, I don't know who you are. I have a million things to do. Everybody's so busy, right? But if it's, I really would like to break into this industry and I've had this experience before, and I was wondering if you had 10 minutes to talk about this, this, and this. They know exactly what they're getting. 10 minutes, that's not very much time. You're asking me these 3 questions, that's doable. But the vaguer, the worse kind of to figure out what, the easier it is for the person to say no, basically.
You mentioned cover letters a moment ago, and you encourage people not to write to whom it may concern, to find out who the hiring manager is. What are some other tips that you think are important for job seekers to remember when putting a cover letter together?
Yes, I'm a big proponent of cover letters. We've written about it quite a lot at Fast Company. I know there's kind of two divided schools of thought. A lot of people don't like cover letters. They feel that, they don't get read. A lot of people will outsource it even more so now to AI, or they'll write one generic cover letter and send it to every job. I think that's a big mistake, even if it doesn't get read. If, there is a chance that it will get read, and it can really tip your resume and your job application over the edge. The cover letter is a great opportunity to explain what your resume doesn't. It's also a great opportunity to get very specific about what about that job in particular inspires you and makes you interested. You should craft your cover letter, a different cover letter to each job you're applying for. And really, it gives you the opportunity to explain anything on your resume that might not make sense. If it's a career switch or an industry switch, you can talk about the transferable skills that you have. Your resume just is a list of what you've done and where you've done it. You can also, talk more specifically about what connects you to that company's mission, or ideas that you have if you were to get the job. Or it's a really great opportunity to make yourself appear more human, to show who you are.
Terrific. We're going to take a break. Stay with us. When we come back, Kathleen Davis will continue to share her advice on how to get your foot in the door when you don't know anyone. Have you promised yourself you would travel more this year? Well, I have the next promise you need to make. Learning a new language with Babbel. Thanks to Babbel, you don't have to be that tourist who talks to others through a translation app. With Babbel's help, I've kept my Spanish up. And that means the next time I visit Spain or Latin America, I can handle real-life conversations in restaurants, stores, and airports. You can too. Learn everything you need from vocabulary to culture while holding your own in conversation with anybody. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real-life stuff you actually need when communicating. And because conversing is the key to understanding each other in a new language, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. With a focus on conversation, you'll be ready to talk wherever you go. This year, get talking with Babbel. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/dreamjob. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/dreamjob. Spelled BABBEL.com/dreamjob. Babbel.com/dreamjob. Rules and restrictions may apply. Your legal identity is one of your most valuable assets, and it could be in jeopardy. Data brokers around the world buy and sell large collections of names, addresses, and other personal information. Anyone, anywhere can legally buy these records, including bad actors. And this can put you at risk. Here's how it can happen. Many people who use the Maxlist job board, for example, tell me they regularly get texts and emails offering opportunities that seem to be too good to be true. And if you respond, you may be asked to share personal information that scammers can use to steal your identity, commit mail or wire fraud, or trick you into sending money. You have the right to protect your privacy, and you can ask the data brokers to delete your information. Take back control of your personal data today. Incogni can help you reduce spam and prevent identity theft. Incogni reaches out to data brokers for you, requests removal of your personal information, and deals with any objections. Use promo code DREAMJOB to get an exclusive 60% off Incogni's annual subscription plan. Go to incogni.com/dreamjob. We're back in the Maxlist studio. I'm talking with Kathleen Davis. She's the deputy editor at fastcompany.com, where she writes about careers, hiring, and other workplace topics. Kathleen also hosts the New Way We Work podcast, and she joins us from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And Kathleen, before the break, we were talking about how to get your foot in the door when you don't know anyone, and we finished that first segment by talking about the difference cover letters can make. One point you made earlier in the segment is the importance of following directions. Why does following directions when you're applying for a position help you get your foot in the door when you don't know anyone?
I will say it definitely will differentiate you from the, as I said, hundreds, if not thousands of other applicants. I will share that, I am a hiring manager, and whenever I post, especially for, editing and writing positions, I will put in the job description, please include a resume, cover letter, and 2 story ideas. It is shocking how many people do not include, either just send a resume, maybe send a resume and cover letter, and very few send the story ideas. And to me, for a position like that was a little bit of a test. I was seeing if you have an attention to detail. But also, I want to know, I put that in there because I want to know, have you looked at the website? Do you understand the company? Do you understand the type of job you're applying for? That sort of attention to detail really can set you apart as a candidate. It goes part and parcel with don't have typos in your resume and cover letter, but just slowing down. I know when you're applying for jobs, sometimes you apply for a lot of jobs. It's very tempting to take shortcuts. But really reading through not once, but twice to make sure that you checked all of the boxes really does kind of set you apart because so many people don't do that.
Can doing more than what an employer asks for help you stand out and get your foot in the door as well?
I think it depends. I think you don't want to kind of overburden somebody, so you don't want to be kind of too extra. Like, if they ask for a cover letter and resume, and you send them a video that they might be kind of like, this is not what we asked for. I think sending exactly kind of what they asked for, the format they asked for, following the rules, and then as I said, before, you're welcome then to follow up and find that personal connection, do a little bit extra on that end. But if they are telling you to apply through the company website using a PDF of your resume, you better apply through the company website using a PDF of your resume, because it's a very bad first impression to say, yeah, I know that's what you asked for, but I'm going to do it this way instead.
What about your network, Kathleen? Everybody has a network. How can your network help you, especially if you don't know anyone at a company, make connections and get in front of employers?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, when you say everybody has a network, I'm sure that some people are listening and thinking, well, no, I don't. I don't have, I just have like my former coworkers or that sort of thing. I don't have this great professional network, especially if you're trying to change industries or change careers. But the more you dig, the more you will start to realize that you do have a network, especially, as I said before, it can be really, you can feel like you're at a disadvantage if you don't have, you didn't go to the same college as some of the people who work there, or you haven't previously worked at the same companies, because unfortunately, a lot of hiring managers still do that sort of like, well, who do we know? And let's tap our internal networks. But through a site like LinkedIn, Indeed, through, social media, you can start to see your common connections and start to make those common connections, start to reach out to those people. So if you see you previously worked with somebody who also previously worked with a person who's at the company you want to apply for, you can reach out to that common connection and say, do you know Kathleen? Can you introduce me? Can you put in a good word for me? To kind of start to make those genuine connections so you don't feel like you're kind of cold calling people so much.
What are you asking for? To say more about that is you ask for an introduction, for example. What do you do when your contact makes that introduction, and how is it going to help you stand out from your competitors who are looking to work at that place?
So because then you have a person in common, you don't feel like a total stranger, right? So if I'm very interested in working at this company and I do everything, all of the advice that I just gave, but I reach out to that person and they don't know who I am, that's still a little bit of a leap of faith you're asking them to take. But if it's, oh, we both used to work with Jill, and I'm reaching out as, Jill had recommended me and we both, used to work together. I see we both have Jill in common. You kind of are like finding that common ground. That like first step of common ground is a really great, place to start. And if it's, we both went to the University of Michigan, we both used to live in New York City, we both, some sort of like common ground makes a person feel like less of a stranger and makes the hiring manager a little bit more apt to say, okay, I'll actually take that 15-minute call. I'll actually like give your resume a closer look.
I know, Kathleen, you're a big fan that when job seekers network, that they not only ask for help, but they offer something of value as well. Why is it important to do that? And what can job seekers offer to others?
I think, why it's important to do that is because you don't want to just kind of ask. Give me, what do you have that you can give me? Relationships are two-way streets. And especially, when you're making connections, when you're making friends in, any kind of part of your life, it's not just like, what can you give me? It's a give and take. And so, when I say, what offer some sort of value add, I think about many years ago when I was looking for a job, I started posting things about the sorts of content that I was interested in and giving kind of thoughtful story ideas and that sort of thing. And I met an editor and we were, exchanging kind of ideas. And then she said, oh, actually, there's this job that I have posted or a job that, an opening that I hadn't even posted it yet. But because I was already kind of putting myself out there with valuable ideas, it wasn't just me kind of asking her for something.
Networking can be a long game. How do you recommend that a job seeker balance building a relationship with others versus the urgency of needing a job now?
It is a long game. And yeah, when you need a job now, you don't want to, spend your time kind of doing all of these networking things. You want to get a job. So I think the time to start is before you are so desperate to get a job. I think, hopefully it's while you're still in another position, you are building up your profile. It is a long game, as you say. So if you want to, be seen as a marketing expert, it's not, okay, I left my job and I need a new job desperately now. I'm going to suddenly become seen as a marketing expert. You build that profile up, you build that expertise up as you are, kind of doing your job. You're laying that groundwork so that when you are in the position of you really wanting to find a job, you're not starting from scratch.
You've mentioned LinkedIn a number of times now. What's your best advice for someone who wants to get their foot in the door somewhere where they don't know anyone, and how they might use LinkedIn to do that?
Yeah. So, as I said before, I think it's looking at the companies that you're interested in working for and finding the people there, starting, sending a connection request. And again, if you're sending the connection request, I get a million connection requests that are blank. You can send a message with that, and explain just why you want to connect rather than just, fire hosing it out and request, like friend requesting every single person who works at every single company that you're interested in, really kind of being thoughtful about it. And then it has, then there's the feature of, oh, you're connected to this person. You might also know this person. And then, kind of snowballs from there.
Well, it's been a terrific conversation, Kathleen. Now tell us what's next for you.
So, I am hosting the new season of The New Way We Work. We are in our 13th season. This season is all about how AI will change your job, including how AI will change how you look for a job, and will change how you do your job. And I'm also writing a weekly column called Pressing Questions, which is about all of the most pressing workplace questions that everybody experiences from every stage of your career, from getting a job to once you're in your job to leaving a job. And all of that can be found on fastcompany.com.
Well, terrific. We'll be sure to include a link to fastcompany.com in the show notes and the website article for your episode. And I know, Kathleen, you also invite listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn. And when you do reach out to Kathleen, hope you'll mention that you heard her on Find Your Dream Job. Now, Kathleen, given all the great advice you've shared today, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about how to get your foot in the door when you don't know anyone?
I think the bottom line, if you don't remember anything else I said, is to please follow the directions of the job posting, write a personalized cover letter, and find a real human to reach out to and make a real personal connection with them.
Next week, our guest will be Laura Knights. She's an executive coach, a speaker, and a trainer. Laura is also the founder and CEO of two companies, Black Women Leading and Knights Consulting. You can't rely on your credentials alone when you look for work. Employers also want to see that you have a track record of solving problems. Join us next Wednesday when Laura Knights and I talk about how to explain your value to an employer. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton-Hoff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislenberry-Anderson manages our social media. Our sound engineer and editor is Matt Fiorillo. Dawn Mole creates our transcripts, and our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week. Have you ever been asked this in a job interview? Tell me about a time when you didn't agree with your boss. What would you say? This is what's called a behavioral interview question, and it's a common tactic. Employers use this kind of question to explore your fit for a job based on your past experience. It can be an easy question to answer, if you have the right strategy. I show you how to answer these gotcha questions in our free Max List guide, 100 Behavioral Interview Questions You Need to Know. To get your copy, visit maxlist.org/questions. You'll also learn 4 simple steps for answering any behavioral interview question. Again, that's maxlist.org/questions. You can count on getting these questions in your next interview. Why not get the answers before you walk into the interview room? Go to maxlist.org/questions.